My husband called our newborn damaged and signed her adoption papers while I was still under anesthesia. 10 years later, that same little girl knocked on my door holding the one hospital photo I thought I'd lost forever. My name is Sarah Bennett. I am 39 years old, and I did not get to hold my daughter when she was born. People always ask me what I remember from that day. They expect me to talk about the pain, or the bright lights in the operating room, or the first cry. I remember the quiet. That specific, terrible quiet that falls when a room full of people suddenly decides not to look at you. I also remember my husband's voice, very calm, very reasonable, saying the word that would end our marriage. He said, "She's damaged." Our daughter was born on a Tuesday in October, at St. Luke's in Boise, Idaho. It was 3 weeks early. Not dangerously early, just early enough that the doctors wanted to watch her. I had been in labor for 19 hours when my blood pressure spiked, and they rushed me for an emergency C-section. Mark, my husband, was holding my hand right up until they put the mask over my face. He kissed my forehead and said, "See you on the other side." The other side was a recovery room, cold and too bright. My throat was raw. My arms felt like lead. The first thing I said, I think, was, "Where is she?" A nurse named Elena wouldn't meet my eyes. She checked my she fluffed my pillow, she said the doctor would be in soon. I asked again, "Is she in the NICU? Can I see her?" Mark came in then. He was still wearing the blue scrubs they give dads, but his hair was combed. He was holding 2 cups of coffee. He set one down on my tray like we were at a meeting. He sat down and he took my hand. His hand was warm. I will give him that. He did not look away when he did it. "Sarah, honey, we need to talk about the baby." I smiled. I was still groggy from the anesthesia. "Is she okay? Is she beautiful? Does she have your nose?" He took a breath. "She has a bilateral cleft lip and palate." And the pediatric cardiologist heard a murmur. "They think it might be a ventricular septal defect. A hole in the heart." I just stared at him. I didn't know what those words meant, not really. I just heard lip and heart. "Okay," I whispered. "So, surgery?" "Kids have surgery all the time." "Multiple surgeries," he said. "Starting at 3 months. Years of speech therapy. Feeding tubes. Possible hearing loss. And the heart thing could mean open heart surgery before she's 1. If she makes it. If she makes it. I pulled my hand away. "Don't say that. Don't you ever say that about our daughter." He leaned forward, and his voice got that reasonable tone he used when he was selling a house to a couple who couldn't afford it. Mark was a realtor. He was very good at making bad decisions sound logical. "Sarah, listen to me. We talked about this. We said we wanted a healthy family. A normal life. We are not equipped for this. We had never talked about this. Not once. We had painted the nursery yellow because we didn't want to know the gender. We had picked 2 names, Noah or Emma. We had argued about whether to get a golden retriever. Where is she?" I asked again, and my voice was shaking now. "She's stable. She's in the NICU," he said. "I want to see her. Now. Will me down." He didn't move. "There's something else." He pulled a folded piece of paper out of the pocket of his scrubs. It was a hospital form. I could see the St. Luke's logo at the top. There were signatures at the bottom. I couldn't read it. My vision was blurry. "I signed the papers," he said, "while you were under. I spoke to a social worker. There's a family, a wonderful Christian family in Oregon. They specialize in medical needs adoptions. They have 3 other kids just like her. They can give her the life she deserves. The care she needs. The room tilted. You did what? They're calling it a voluntary relinquishment. For her own good, Sarah. We can try again in a year. For a healthy baby. I think I screamed. I know Elena ran back in. I know an alarm went off somewhere. I remember trying to rip the 4 out of my arm to get to the NICU. I remember Mark standing up, stepping back, holding his coffee like I was a client having an emotional outburst. She's damaged, Sarah, he said, louder now, over my screaming. I am not going to spend the next 20 years bankrupting us for a child who will never be normal. I'm doing this for us. Security came. Not for him. For me. They sedated me again. When I woke up the second time, it was dark outside. Mark was gone. My mother was there, her face white. She was holding my phone. My breasts were aching, full of milk for a baby who was not in the building anymore. They had already transferred her. The adoptive family had a private medical transport. Because Mark had signed as my husband, as my medical proxy while I was incapacitated, the hospital had processed it as a joint decision. It was legal in Idaho, with a spousal consent waiver in an emergency. I learned that later from a lawyer who charged me $400 an hour to tell me there was almost nothing I could do. I had given birth at 2:14 p.m. on October 17th. My daughter, Emma Grace Bennett, was legally relinquished at 4:47 p.m. the same day. I never saw her face except in one Polaroid picture Elena slipped me when no one was looking. A nurse breaking the rules. In the photo, she is in an incubator, wrapped in a striped blanket. She has a head full of dark hair. She has my chin. She has a cleft that runs up both sides of her upper lip, up to her nose. Her eyes are closed. There is a tiny feeding tube taped to her cheek. She is not damaged. She is perfect. She is furious and red-faced and perfect. I named her Emma in my head while they were cutting me open. Mark never knew that. The next 3 days in the hospital were a blur of lactation consultants telling me to pump and dump, and social workers telling me to consider grief counseling. And Mark telling me I was being hormonal. He came back on day 2 with flowers. Grocery store lilies. He sat down and explained the financials. How much a cleft repair costs even with insurance. How much a heart surgery costs. How it would affect his ability to get his broker's license. How his parents had agreed it was the mature decision. I asked him to leave. He said I needed rest. On day 3, I discharged myself AMA, against medical advice. My mother drove me home. The nursery was finished. Yellow walls. A white crib from Pottery Barn that Mark had assembled. A mobile with little felt clouds. I walked in, still bleeding, still stapled together, and I sat in the rocking chair, and I pumped milk into bottles that I poured down the sink for 6 weeks, because my body didn't know she was gone. Mark filed for a legal separation 2 months later. He said I had become a First, I called the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare. I learned that because the adoption was private and interstate, and because I was married at the time of birth, my signature was not technically required if my husband claimed I was incapacitated and it was in the child's best medical interest. It was a loophole big enough to drive a truck through. A lawyer told me I could fight it, but it would take years and hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I would likely lose, and I would traumatize the child in the process. I called the adoption agency in Oregon. They would not confirm or deny anything. Closed adoption. Sealed records. I hired a private investigator for $2,500, all of our savings. He found the family in 3 weeks. The Millers. David and Karen Miller. Bend, Oregon. He gave me an address. He gave me photos from their Facebook, which was public at the time. They had 3 adopted children, all with special needs. A boy with Down syndrome, a girl with a limb difference, a little boy with a trach, and there she was. In a car seat on their couch. 3 months old. Post first lip repair. A thin pink scar across her lip. They had renamed her. They called her Hope. Hope Miller. I sat in my car outside their house on a rainy Thursday in February. She would have been 4 months old. I watched Karen Miller carry a car seat inside from the garage. I did not see her face. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles went white, and I drove the 5 hours back to Boise without stopping. I did not knock. What was I going to do? Kidnap her? Scream on their lawn? They were not monsters. From everything I could see, they were good people. They had the resources, the experience, the insurance Mark said we lacked. They were giving her the surgeries, the therapy, the life. Mark had chosen them because they made him feel less guilty. And he was right about one thing, which is the hardest part to live with. They could do more for her than I could at that moment. I was 29, unemployed, living in my mother's spare room, recovering from a C-section, and a betrayal that felt like a death. So I made a different vow. I would not steal her childhood. But I would be there for her adulthood. I would get stable. I would get sober from the grief. I would wait. Mark and I divorced the next year. He married a dental hygienist named Jessica 18 months later. They had a son, a perfectly healthy boy named Tyler. I saw the birth announcement on Instagram. I blocked him that day. I went back to school. I had been a preschool teacher before. I became an RN. I specialized in pediatric cardiology at St. Luke's, on the same floor where my daughter was born. I told myself it wasn't poetic, it was practical. I needed to understand her heart. Every October 17th, I baked a cake. Yellow cake with chocolate frosting, because I didn't know what she liked. I took a picture of it, and I saved it in a folder on my laptop called H. I never posted them. I wrote her letters. Hundreds of them. I never sent them. I kept them in a fireproof box under my bed. Dear Emma, today you are 1. I hope they fixed your lip. I hope you can smile without pain. The Millers sent updates to the agency for the first 5 years, as per the agreement Mark signed. Because I was still legally the birth mother, I was entitled to non-identifying updates. A photo once a year, a 1-page letter. I lived for those envelopes. Age 1. She is walking. She loves music. Age 2. Heart defect closed on its own. No surgery needed. She says mama. Age 3. Second palate repair successful. Speech therapy twice a week. Age 4. She is sassy. She loves swimming. Age 5. She asked about her birth mother. That last one stopped my heart. I called the social worker. She said the Millers were open to contact when Hope was older if Hope wanted it. They were good people. They told her she was adopted from day 1. They told her she was chosen and loved twice. At age 6, the updates stopped. The Millers had moved. No forwarding address. The agency said the adoptive parents had chosen to close the file. I panicked. I hired the PI again. He found they had moved to Washington State, near Spokane. He gave me a new address. I did not drive there. I was doing better. I was charge nurse now. I had bought a small house. I had a dog. I was dating someone kind, a physical therapist named Ben who knew my whole story on the second date and didn't flinch. I was waiting like I promised. Then last year, 9 years after she was born, I got a friend request on Facebook. From a Karen Miller in Spokane Valley, Washington. I accepted. She messaged me instantly. Hi Sarah. I don't know if you remember me. I'm Hope's mom. I think it's time we talked. We talked on the phone for 2 hours. She cried. I cried. She told me Hope was healthy, brilliant, funny. She told me Hope had always known about me. She told me Hope had my dark hair and my stubborn chin. She told me the Cleft repairs were beautiful, you could barely see the scars. And then she said the sentence I had waited 10 years to hear. She wants to meet you. She's been asking for 2 years. We told her she had to wait until she was 10. Her birthday is next month, October 17th. October 17th came. I drove 4 hours to Spokane. I was shaking so hard I could barely hold the steering wheel. Ben came with me, but he waited in the car. I saw them from across the park. Karen waving. David. And a little girl with long dark hair in a braid, wearing a purple coat. She was tall for 10. She had a violin case on her back. She walked toward me, not running. Very deliberate. She stopped 3 feet away, and looked up at me with eyes I recognized from my own childhood photos. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a folded, worn Polaroid picture. The edges were soft. It was the same picture Elena, the nurse, had given me. Of her in the incubator. My mom gave me this for my birthday, she said. Her speech was perfect, just a slight softness on certain sounds. She said, "You are the lady who gave me life." She said you didn't get to hold me because some people thought I was damaged. My knees gave out. I knelt on the wet grass in that park. "Are you Sarah?" she asked. I nodded, because I couldn't speak. She looked at me very seriously, this 10-year-old girl I had dreamed about for a decade. And she said, "I don't think I'm damaged. Do you?" I couldn't answer her at first. I was on my knees in wet grass in Riverfront Park in Spokane. And my 10-year-old daughter, who I had not seen since the minute she was born, was holding out a faded Polaroid of herself in an incubator, and asking me if I thought she was damaged. The words got stuck somewhere between my heart and my throat. Ben had told me on the drive up, "Don't over-explain. Just listen." But all the letters I had written for 10 years suddenly felt useless. I finally found my voice. It came out as a whisper. "No," I said. "No, baby. I have never thought that. Not for 1 second." She studied my face like she was checking for a lie. Kids who have been through medical trauma get good at reading adults. I know, because I work with them every day. "Good," she said, and she nodded once, very seriously. "Because I'm not. I'm just Hope." Then she did something that broke me completely. She stepped forward and she hugged me. Not a polite, therapist-coached hug. A real one. Her arms went around my neck, her violin case thumped against my back, and she smelled like strawberry shampoo and cold air. I held her for the first time 10 years, and 3 hours late, Karen was crying behind her. David had his phone out, recording because we had agreed beforehand. I didn't care. I just breathed her in. We sat on a park bench for an hour. That was the rule the therapist gave us. 1 hour, neutral location, low pressure. I gave her the whale book. She opened it right there and said, "Did you know blue whales have hearts the size of a Volkswagen Beetle?" She said it perfectly, just a tiny softness on the S sound from her palate repair. You would never know unless you were listening for it. I told her I was a heart nurse. Her eyes got huge. "For kids?" she asked. I nodded. "Cool," she said. "Maybe you fixed hearts like mine." "Yours fixed itself," I told her. "You were stronger than all of us." She asked me 3 questions in that hour. I will remember them for the rest of my life. 1. Do you have any other kids? 2. Do you like my name, Hope? I love it. It suits you. Point 3. Why didn't you come get me? Karen inhaled sharply at that one. We had prepared for it. The therapist said, tell the age-appropriate truth. I looked at my daughter, at the faint silver scar on her upper lip that makeup could barely hide, and I said, because I was very sick after you were born, and I didn't have the money or the house to take care of you the way you needed. And your mom and dad, Karen and David, could give you surgeries right away. I thought if I loved you enough to let you go, you would have a better life. I was wrong to stay away so long. I should have fought harder. It wasn't the whole truth. The whole truth involved her father calling her damaged. But she was 10. That was a wait for another day. She thought about it, then she just said, okay. And she went back to the whale book. When the hour was up, she hugged me again and said, can I text you? Karen had already set up a kid-safe messaging app. I said yes so fast I almost cried. I watched them walk away to their car. Hope turned around twice to wave. I stood in that park until Ben came and put his coat around my shoulders because I was shaking. On the drive back to Boise, I didn't speak for the first 2 hours. Then I started laughing, then crying, then laughing again. Ben just held my hand and let me. That night I took the fireproof box from under my bed, and I finally mailed the first letter. I had rewritten it 20 times. It just said, Dear Hope, today I got to hug you. It was the best day of my life. Love, Sarah. She texted me a photo of it 3 days later, taped to her bedroom wall. For the next 4 months, we built something careful and beautiful. We texted every Tuesday and Thursday after her violin practice. We video called on Sundays. She showed me her fish tank, her report card. She played me a song she wrote called Orca Dreams. I showed her my tiny house, my goofy golden retriever named Milo, the yellow nursery I had never repainted. Karen was a saint through it all. She sent me updates, she warned me when Hope had a hard day at school. She never once made me feel like an intruder. David was quieter, but kind. I thought the hard part was over. I was wrong. The hard part had just been sleeping. Mark found out on a Thursday in February. I was at work, starting a night shift in the PCU, when my phone buzzed. It was a number I had deleted 5 years ago, but my body still remembered. Mark, we need to talk. Now. Mark, Jessica saw Karen Miller's Facebook post. The one with you and Hope at the park. Are you out of your mind? Mark, you are going to ruin everything. I went into the med room and locked the door and called him back because my hands were shaking too hard to text. He answered on the first ring. His voice was the same. That reasonable realtor voice. Sarah, what the hell are you doing? He said. No, hello. I'm having a relationship with my daughter, I said. Which is legal. And none of your business. It is my business when you start parading her around on social media. Jessica didn't know the details. She thought it was a standard adoption. She didn't know that you called her damaged and signed her away while I was unconscious. I finished for him. Silence. She's 10, Mark. She knows she's adopted. She knows she had a cleft. She doesn't know her birth father thought she was a financial liability. Keep my name out of your mouth, he snapped. I have a family. I have a reputation in this town. Tyler goes to school with kids whose parents are my clients. If this gets out, there it was. Not guilt. Fear. Tyler. I remembered the perfect little boy from Instagram. He would be 8 now. How is Tyler? Another pause, longer this time. He's fine. Mark called me 3 more times that week. He went from angry to pleading. He told me Hope's parents had signed a non-disclosure as part of the private adoption. He told me I was violating it, I called my lawyer. I wasn't. The NDA was his, not mine, and it expired when Hope turned 18 anyway. And Hope's parents wanted contact. The last call, he said, "Sarah, I'm begging you. Don't tell her it was me. Tell her it was both of us. Or tell her you were young. Don't make me the villain." I hung up on him. I didn't tell Hope that week. I didn't want her first months of knowing me to be about his ugliness. But kids are smart. Especially kids who have spent their lives in waiting rooms. In March, during our Sunday video call, Hope was quiet. She was picking at a loose thread on her sweater. "Are you mad at me?" I asked. She shook her head. "My friend at school said adopted kids are given away because they were bad. Or broken." My heart stopped. "Is that why?" she asked, looking right into the camera. Was I broken? I had promised Karen I would not trauma dump on a 10-year-old. But I had also promised myself I would never lie to her again. "No, love," I said. "You were born with a cleft lip, which is just a little opening that doctors fix. And you had a small hole in your heart that closed all by itself. You were never broken. You were perfect." She nodded slowly. "Then why?" I took a breath. Ben was in the doorway, listening. He gave me a small nod. "Your birth father was scared," I said carefully. "He thought taking care of you would be too hard and cost too much money. He made a very bad, very selfish choice while I was asleep from surgery." I did not agree. I did not sign anything. "I have spent 10 years wishing I could have held you that day." She didn't cry. She just absorbed it like she was filing it away. "What's his name?" she asked. "Mark." "Do I have to meet him?" "Never if you don't want to," I said. "Never." She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Okay. Can Milo say hi?" And that was it. For a 10-year-old, that was enough truth for one day. Karen called me later that night. "Thank you for telling her the truth," she whispered. "She's been carrying that word damaged since she found her baby file last year. She thought it was a medical term." I felt sick. She found the file? She's curious. She's 10. We keep everything in a box for her. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Mark's perfect son, Tyler. 2 weeks later, I got a call from an unknown number during my lunch break. It was Jessica, Mark's wife. "Sarah, this is Jessica Bennett," she said, her voice tight. "I think we should meet." We met at a coffee shop halfway between Boise and Meridian, where Mark wouldn't see us. She was pretty in that polished PTA mom way. She slid into the booth and didn't order anything. "I didn't know," she said right away. "He told me you both agreed. He told me you were postpartum and depressed, and you both thought it was best. He told me the baby had severe disabilities and wouldn't live long." I just stared at her. "Tyler was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes last year," she said, and her eyes filled. "He's 8. He wears an insulin pump. He will have it for the rest of his life. Mark, he didn't handle it well at first. He kept saying, 'This isn't what I signed up for.' He went to therapy. He's better now. But when I saw that photo of Hope, with her scar, and I remembered what he told me about you, I put it together." She started crying quietly into a napkin. "He called his own daughter damaged, didn't he?" I nodded. "I am so sorry," she whispered. "I am raising my son with a man who threw away his daughter for being less than perfect. What does that make me?" I reached across the table and held her hand, because what else could I do? We were two women who had loved the same flawed man. She left me with one piece of information that would change everything. Mark told Tyler that Hope was a cousin who died. "If she ever reaches out, please be gentle with my son. He's innocent." I promised I would, April came. Hope was supposed to come for spring break in 2 weeks. We had it all planned. She would stay in the yellow nursery, which I had finally updated with a 10-year-old in mind. Whales on the walls instead of clouds. She would meet Milo. Ben would teach her to make pizza. Then, on a Tuesday night, exactly 10 years and 6 months after she was born, I was home alone. Ben was working late. It was raining hard, that cold Idaho spring rain that sounds like static. There was a knock on my door at 8:47 p.m. Not a polite knock. A small, hesitant, 3-tap knock. I opened the door, expecting an Amazon driver. Hope was standing on my porch, soaked. Her purple coat dripping. Her violin case in one hand, a small pink rolling suitcase in the other. No Karen. No David. Just her. Her hair was plastered to her face. Her lip was trembling. She looked up at me with those eyes and said the 5 words I had waited a decade to hear. But not like this. Never like this. Can I stay here tonight? Behind her, in the street, a yellow school bus, with Spoken Youth Orchestra on the side, was pulling away. She had come on a field trip. She had run. I dropped to my knees on my own welcome mat, right there in the rain, and pulled her inside. She was shivering so hard her teeth chattered. "What happened, baby?" I whispered into her wet hair. She clutched my shirt and sobbed. I heard Mark's wife on the phone with my mom. She said he has a son now. A perfect son. And I wanted to see if you would still want me if I wasn't perfect either. And behind her, on the porch, my phone started ringing. It was Karen. It was David. It was probably Mark, too. But all I could hear was my daughter crying in my arms in the house I had kept ready for her for 10 years. I pulled her inside and slammed the door against the rain. Hope was shaking so hard her violin case rattled against her leg. Water pooled on my entryway rug. Milo, my golden retriever, came skidding around the corner and immediately started licking her wet hand like he had known her his whole life. "Can I stay here tonight?" she had asked. I didn't answer with words. I just wrapped her in the big fleece blanket from the couch and carried her, suitcase and all, straight to the bathroom. She was 10, but she felt light as a toddler in my arms. My phone was still buzzing on the porch where I'd dropped it. I could see the screen lighting up through the glass. Karen Miller. Karen Miller. David Miller. I put Hope on the closed toilet seat, turned the shower on hot, and answered on speaker while I grabbed a towel. "Sarah." Karen's voice was shredded. "Is she there? Please tell me she's there." The chaperone said she got off the bus at the rest stop in Boise, and she vanished. "She's here," I said quickly. "She's safe. She's wet and cold, but she's safe, Karen. She's in my bathroom right now." I heard David swear in relief in the background. Karen started crying so hard she couldn't speak for a minute. "I'm so sorry," she finally gasped. "We didn't know about the field trip. The school orchestra had a competition in Boise. She told us last week, but we thought she was okay. She texted us from the bus that she loved us. Then nothing." I looked at Hope. She had pulled her knees to her chest inside the blanket. She was watching me with huge, guilty eyes. "She's okay," I repeated, softer now for Hope's benefit. "We're going to get her warm." "How far are you?" "For hours if David speeds," Karen said. "Please don't let her leave. Please don't call the police yet. We don't want her scared." "I won't," I promised. "Drive safe. I'll keep her here." I hung up and knelt in front of Hope. "Hey," I whispered. "You're not in trouble with me. Ever. But your mom is driving through a storm because she's terrified. Can you tell me what happened? She stared at the steam from the shower. I heard Jessica on the phone. My stomach dropped. Jessica. Mark's wife. Yesterday, Hope continued, her voice small. Mom was on speaker in the kitchen. Jessica called to warn her that you and I were talking. She said Mark was really upset. She said Mark has a son now. Tyler. And he's perfect. He plays baseball, and he doesn't need any surgeries. She pulled the blanket tighter. Then at school today, on the bus, my friend Maya showed me a TikTok. It was Tyler's baseball team page. Mark was in the background coaching. Someone tagged him. I clicked his profile. It was public. She looked up at me, tears mixing with rain on her cheeks. He looks happy, Sarah. He looks like a dad. The pain in her voice was so adult it nearly killed me. I did that DNA project for science class last month, remember? I told you. The teacher let us use the ancestry site. I found him. Tyler Bennett. It said predicted half-sibling. 24.7% shared DNA. She had found her brother through a school project. While Mark was trying to hide her, science had already introduced them. On the bus, the boys were making fun of my scar, she whispered. They call me Patchwork sometimes. One of them said, at least your real parents didn't want you because you were broken. And I thought about Mark having Tyler, who is perfect, and I thought about you keeping my nursery yellow for 10 years, and I wanted to know which house I belonged in. She started to cry in earnest then, big silent sobs that shook her whole body. I got off at the Flying J truck stop and I walked. I remembered your address from the letters you sent Mom. I just wanted to see if you would open the door. I pulled her into me, blanket and all, and I let her soak my shirt. I will always open the door, I said into her hair. Even if you show up at midnight. Even if you show up at 80. Especially if you think you're not perfect. Because you are not a backup plan, Hope. You were never the second choice. Ben got home 20 minutes later to find Hope in my oversized Boise State sweatshirt, drinking hot chocolate at the kitchen island, Milo's head in her lap. He took one look at my face and understood everything. He didn't ask questions. He just made grilled cheese, cut it diagonally the way kids like, and sat down and asked Hope about her violin. Within 5 minutes, she was showing him how to hold the bow. Ben is a physical therapist. He is good with hands and with scared things. At 11:34 p.m., while Hope was in the yellow nursery trying on the whale pajamas I had bought for her spring break visit, there was a hard pounding on my front door. Not a knock. A pound. Ben looked at me. I knew who it was before I opened it. Mark stood on my porch in the rain, no coat, his hair dripping. Jessica was behind him in the car, engine running, looking mortified. He pushed past me into my house without being invited. 10 years since I had seen him up close. He had more gray at his temples. Same reasonable face. Where is she? He demanded. Ben stepped between us. You need to lower your voice. There's a child asleep upstairs. She's not a child, she's my legal liability, Mark snapped. Karen called Jessica crying. Do you have any idea what you've done? You encouraged a 10-year-old to run away across state lines. That's custodial interference, Sarah. I laughed. I actually laughed. I didn't encourage anything, Mark. She ran from the truth you built. She found out you have a perfect son, and she wanted to know why she wasn't good enough. His face went white, then red. You told her. I told her you were scared, I said. She filled in the rest herself, with a $20 DNA kit. Just then, Hope appeared at the top of the stairs in the whale pajamas. She had heard her name. Everyone froze. Mark looked up. For the first time in 10 years, he saw his daughter's face. She didn't look damaged. She looked like a taller, feminine version of his own mother. Same dark hair. Same stubborn chin. The scar on her lip was a thin pale line. Almost invisible. She was beautiful. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Hope stared at him for a long moment. Then she said, very clearly, "Are you Mark?" He nodded, unable to speak. "Okay," she said. "I just wanted to see what a person looks like who throws babies away." Jessica made a small sound from the doorway and covered her mouth. Mark flinched like she'd slapped him. "Hope, that's not. It's complicated." "No," Hope said, and her voice didn't waver. "My brave girl. My mom Karen said you were young and scared. Sarah said you were selfish. I think you were both. But I'm not damaged. My heart works fine. My lip works fine. I play violin. I get A's in science. So you were wrong." She turned and walked back into the nursery and closed the door. Mark stood in my living room, rain dripping onto my rug, looking like a man who had just been convicted by a jury of one 10-year-old. Ben walked him to the door. "You need to leave," he said quietly. "Now." Mark left. Jessica stayed for a second longer. She looked at me. "Thank you for keeping her safe," she whispered. Then she followed her husband into the rain. Karen and David arrived at 1:47 a.m. Karen ran into the house and up the stairs, and I heard Hope burst into tears again. But different tears this time. Safe tears. David shook my hand with both of his. "Thank you," he kept saying. "Thank you for not calling the police. Thank you for being the soft place." They stayed for an hour. We drank tea in my kitchen while Hope repacked her little suitcase. Karen told me the school counselor had called them last week. Hope had been eating lunch alone. Some boys had been teasing her about her scar, calling her Frankenstein. She hadn't told them because she didn't want to worry anyone. She thought if she met you, and you still wanted her, it would prove them wrong, Karen said softly. Before they left, Hope hugged me so tight I thought my ribs would crack. She pressed something into my hand. It was the Polaroid, the original one from the hospital. "You keep it for now," she whispered. "I'll come back for it." I watched their taillights disappear down my street in the rain. Ben locked the door and pulled me into a hug. I was shaking with adrenaline. At 7:03 the next morning, while I was making coffee, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was a screenshot of an email. From Mark Bennett to Sarah Bennett. Subject: "Cease and desist. You have alienated my biological child and encouraged her to run away. My attorney will be in contact regarding a grandparent-style visitation restraining order and a defamation suit if you continue to tell her lies about me. Stay away from my family." He thought he could still control the narrative. He thought he could still sign papers and make problems disappear. He didn't know Hope had left her phone on my kitchen counter. It was buzzing nonstop with notifications from TikTok. I picked it up to turn it off, and I saw the draft video on her screen, ready to post. It was Hope, sitting in my yellow nursery last night, in those whale pajamas, holding the Polaroid. She was looking straight into the camera. "Hi," she said in the video. "My name is Hope Miller. I am 10 years old. I was born with a cleft lip and my birth dad called me damaged and gave me away. Yesterday I ran away to meet my birth mom for the first time. She kept my room ready for 10 years. I just wanted to tell other kids like me that you are not damaged. You are just waiting for the right door to open." I stared at Hope's phone for a full minute while that draft video looped silently on my kitchen counter, Her face, in my yellow nursery, holding the Polaroid I thought I'd lost forever. You are not damaged. You are just waiting for the right door to open. My first instinct as a mother was to delete it. To protect her. She was 10. The internet is cruel. Mark would sue. The comments would be brutal. My second instinct, as the woman who had waited 10 years for someone to tell the truth out loud, was to hit post myself. I did neither. I called Karen. She answered on the second ring, still driving back to Spokane with Hope asleep in the back seat. I played the video for her over the phone. She was quiet for a long time. She filmed that in your house. Karen finally whispered. Last night. While you were driving here. David's voice came on speaker. Sarah, does she want to post it? I don't know, I said honestly. But I think we should ask her, not decide for her. We put Hope on the phone that evening, after she'd showered and eaten. Karen, David, Ben and I were all on a video call like some strange modern family summit. I held the phone up so Hope could see all of us. Honey, Karen said gently, we saw the video you made at Sarah's. It's beautiful. It's brave. Do you want the world to see it? Hope chewed her lip, the way she does when she's thinking. The scar stretched just slightly. Will Mark get mad? Probably, I said, because I would never lie to her again. Good, she said, and for the first time I saw the steel in her that would carry her through life. I'm tired of him getting to decide who knows I exist. David nodded. Then we post it together. We turn comments off for the first 24 hours. And whatever happens, we handle it as a family. All 4 of us. All 4 of us. Me included. She posted it at 7:14 p.m. from Karen's account. With Karen holding her hand. By midnight it had 10,000 views. By 6 a.m., when I woke up for my shift, it had 400,000. By noon, it was over 2 million. The hashtag damaged started trending, but not the way Mark would have wanted. It was flooded with photos. Kids with cleft lips. Adults with heart surgery scars. Parents holding babies with feeding tubes. All of them holding signs that said not damaged. A pediatric plastic surgeon in Seattle duetted it. A famous country singer who was born with a cleft duetted it. The Cleft Lip and Palate Foundation shared it. And someone tagged Mark's real estate brokerage. Mark Bennett. Boise Premier Realty. 5 stars. Family man. Specializing in homes for growing families. The comments on his business page were not about houses. Is this the guy who called his newborn damaged? Would you trust this man to find a home for your special needs child? Justice for Hope. By Friday, his broker called him in. By Monday, he was on indefinite personal leave. Jessica told me later he sat in his home office for 3 days straight, refreshing the video, watching the view count climb. He never filed that lawsuit. Truth is an absolute defense, and Hope had the Polaroid, the hospital records Karen had kept, and eventually Jessica. Because Jessica did something brave. She posted her own video. No makeup. Sitting in her car while Tyler was at baseball practice. My husband gave up his first daughter because she wasn't perfect, she said, her voice shaking. Then our son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at age 8. And I watched that same man learn, slowly and painfully, how to love a child who needs extra care. He is not a monster. He is a man who made a terrible, cowardly choice and has to live with it. My son Tyler deserves a big sister. And Hope deserves the truth. Tyler, my stepson I had never met, sent Hope a message on the kids' messenger app that Karen monitored. It was a photo of his insulin pump decorated with shark stickers. Hi, he wrote. Mom says you're my sister. I have a broken pancreas. Do you want to be broken together? Hope cried for an hour, then wrote back, I'm not broken. But yes. That was the beginning of justice. Not a courtroom. Not revenge. Just the truth getting so loud that lies couldn't breathe anymore. The next 8 years did not go the way a movie would tell it. There was no dramatic apology scene where Mark fell to his knees. He sent a letter on Hope's 12th birthday. Karen gave it to me to hold until Hope was ready. I kept it in the fireproof box with all my unsent letters. Hope read it when she was 16. She came to Boise for the summer, as she did every summer now. She had her driver's permit. She was taller than me. Her scar was almost invisible unless you knew where to look. She sat on the floor of the yellow nursery, which was now painted a soft blue-gray with whales still on one wall because she asked me to keep them. She read the letter out loud. It was short. Hope, I was 32 and I was terrified. I thought love had to be easy to be real. I was wrong. I think about you every day. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know your dad sees you now. She folded it carefully and put it back in the envelope. I'm not ready to answer, she said. But I'm glad he sees me. That was enough for her. That was justice for her. For me, justice looked different. It looked like Ben and I getting married in my backyard when Hope was 14, with Hope as my maid of honor and Tyler as the ring bearer, his insulin pump beeping softly under his little suit. It looked like Karen and David sitting in the front row, crying, because we had decided a long time ago that love is not a finite resource. It looked like watching Hope speak at a national Cleft conference at age 17. Showing that same Polaroid on a giant screen, telling a room of 500 surgeons, my birth father called me damaged. My birth mother kept my room ready for 10 years. Both things are true. Choose which story you want to be. Mark was in the audience that day. Jessica had bought him a ticket. He sat in the back row. He did not come up to her afterward. He just left a single white rose on her car windshield with a note that said, "Proud of you." Hope kept the rose. She pressed it in her biology textbook. We all thought the story was finished then. We were wrong. The real knock, the one from your title, was still to come. Hope turned 18 last October. She graduated high school in Spokane a semester early with a 4.0 GPA. She was accepted to 5 colleges for marine biology. She chose Boise State. Not because it was the best program, she told me on the phone, but because the best orcas are in the Pacific, but the best mom is in Boise. I laughed and cried at the same time, the way mothers do. She didn't tell me what day she was moving. She said Karen and David were driving the U-Haul, and she'd see me soon. It was a Tuesday. October 17th. Her 18th birthday. Exactly 18 years from the day I gave birth to her and didn't get to hold her. It was raining. Of course it was raining. Idaho in October always rains when something important is happening. I was in the kitchen, taking a yellow cake with chocolate frosting out of the oven. The same cake I had baked every year and photographed and never shared. Ben was setting the table. Milo was asleep by the door. There was a knock. 3 small, hesitant taps. My heart knew before my head did. I opened the door. Hope stood on my porch, soaking wet, just like she had at 10 years old. But now she was a woman. Her dark hair was in a long braid. She wore a Boise State hoodie. She had a rolling suitcase in one hand, a violin case in the other, and a backpack over her shoulder. Behind her in the driveway, Karen and David were unloading boxes, waving at me with tears in their eyes. She didn't have the Polaroid this time. She didn't need it. She looked at me, at the house, at the cake on the counter behind me, and she smiled with that perfect, slightly scarred lip that had caused so much pain and so much love. "Hi," she said, her voice steady and grown up. "My lease at the dorms doesn't start until January. Can I stay here?" It was the same question she had asked at 10, but this time it wasn't a rescue. It was a homecoming. I didn't drop to my knees this time. I stood tall, and I opened the door wide, and I said the words I had practiced for 18 years. "Your room has been ready since the day you were born. Welcome home, baby." She stepped inside and hugged me, and Milo woke up and barked, and Ben cheered, and Karen and David came in with boxes labeled Hope's books and Hope's winter coats, and Tyler FaceTimed from his baseball dugout yelling, "Sissy's home." Later that night, after pizza and cake and after Hope had hung her whale poster back up in her blue-gray room, I found her sitting on the floor of the nursery, now her bedroom, looking at the fireproof box. "You kept them all," she whispered, holding up a stack of my unsent letters. "Every one," I said. She pulled out the very first one, dated October 18th, the day after she was born. It was only 3 words long. "Dear Emma, I love you." She looked up at me with tears in her eyes. "You never called me damaged." "Never," I said. "Not once. Not in my heart, not in my head, not in my soul. You were whole the whole time." She crawled into my lap, all 18 years and 5'7" of her, and rested her head on my shoulder the way she had in the park at 10. "Do you think he ever thinks about what he lost?" she asked quietly. I thought about Mark, who now volunteers at the JDRF Walks for Tyler, who sends Hope a birthday card every year that she doesn't open, but doesn't throw away either, who lost his big real estate career and now sells houses quietly in a small office in Meridian, and tells every new parent client, "The most important room is the nursery, make sure it's ready." I think he thinks about it every day, I said honestly. And I think that's his justice. He has to live knowing he almost missed this. Hope nodded, satisfied. Good. We sat there in the quiet of the house that had waited for her, listening to the rain. That is the end of my story. My husband called our newborn damaged and gave her away. 10 years later, she knocked on my door in the rain to ask if she was still wanted. 8 years after that, she knocked again, this time to stay. Justice wasn't a judge or a lawsuit or a viral video, although all of those things happened. Justice was a door that never locked. Justice was a yellow cake baked every year for a child who wasn't there. Justice was a little girl deciding for herself that she was not damaged, and a whole internet agreeing with her. If you believe, like I do, that every child is born whole, and that the real damage is done by the adults who are too scared to love them, then you are part of our family now. This story was read for you on Justice Served Tales. If it moved you, please like this video so more people can find Hope's message. Comment below with the name of someone you think needs to hear that they are not damaged, and share it with one person who is still waiting for their door to open. Because sometimes, justice doesn't look like punishment. Sometimes, it just looks like coming home. Thank you for listening. I will see you in the next story.